Good evening. My name is Yolanda Samuelson, and today on Economic 5 News, we are going to be going through the forecast of a financial crisis. So a financial crisis is normally a vicious circle, so we're going to walk through today what that circle looks like. So we normally start off after an economic boom with an asset price bust. This eventually leads to insolvencies at some financial institutions such as investment banks and shadow banks. This leads to falling confidence in many of these financial institutions, including commercial banks and other types of banks. Eventually, this leads us to a credit crunch, in which banks have to reduce lending due to these economic insolvencies. This eventually leads to a recession. This is due to the falling aggregate demand, and eventually, this recession comes back around to form this vicious cycle, in which recession puts further pressure on asset prices as well as financial institutions, leading us back to the start of this diagram that we went through, and leading the diagram to continue, causing the economy to fall further into a recession or even a depression. We have reports coming in that Apple stock has just plummeted due to reports that the iPhone can cause blindness. Let's go over to one of our expert economists, Peter Zaleski, to get some insight on the necessary responses to this issue. This could help prevent our vicious cycle forecast from occurring.
Thank you, Yolanda. Well, to summarize, there are three main responses to a financial crisis like this. First off, there's a conventional method of stimulating the economy through aspects such as low interest rates. However, with interest rates already as low as they are, we can't decrease them beyond zero, which does raise an issue. The second response is to use injection of government funds, such as issuing riskier loans or aiding to those who are experiencing losses, through means such as deposit funds, again with the intention of boosting the economy. And lastly, if necessary, there is always the lender of last resort, where the government serves as a last resort of capital through printing money and avoiding a liquidity crisis.
Thank you for that advice, Peter. Now let's go over to one of our other expert economists, Michael Curran, to see how we can prevent this crisis from happening again. We now bring to our local economic expert, Dr. Michael Curran, to explain how this crisis could have been prevented. Dr. Curran, how could this specific crisis have been prevented after the failure of the technological industry, a domino effect after the fall of Apple?
First of all, in terms of Apple's size, should have been restricted. The government should have restricted Apple's mergers. They monopolized the technological market. Additionally, the government should have regulated the excessive risk-taking in their investment in the tech industry. The subsequent collapse of the government banks was disastrous as a result.
Could the government have had the power to close these banks from the start?
Yes, such banks called shadow banks could have been closed by law according to the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. If someone had realized how big a stake they had in the domino effect, could have been prevented. This leads me to another point, the macroprudential regulation. In plain speak, we did not realize we're living in a bubble that was ready to burst.
What do you think the biggest implication of the fall of the technological industry will be?
Honestly, Yolanda, the loss of the world's ability to play Assassin's Creed may be worst of all.
Well, thank you, Michael. As you can see from our expert economists' opinions, there are ways that the government can be responding to this catastrophic event. Tune in tomorrow for news updates as we weather this storm. Thank you, and good night.